So it's quite clear from very simple school child physics that we couldn't have had a great flood by an enormous amount of rain. Okay, well the other possibilities come out of the earth, bubbling out of the earth. We know from drilling deep holes that the porosity of the Earth's crust is a long way less than 1%. The second thing is we know from drilling holes that the water gets hotter and hotter and hotter, and we get temperatures of 300 and 400 degrees Celsius in the crust. So if we were to have 4.4 billion cubic kilometres of water for our catastrophic event to form his fossils, our water would have come out onto the surface at 350 degrees Celsius, and we would have been on a crust that had a porosity of greater than 50%, quicksand. The whole crust would have been quicksand before the Great Flood. We don't have any record of that, but that's the sort of science we're expected to believe. Let's look at a few of the other problems. If we didn't have continental drift, then to explain the creationist argument, we have a minor logistics problem. Noah would have had to have gone to Australia to collect the endemic species from here. He would have had to have gone to Cape York, to Central Australia, to Tasmania, maybe even punished himself and gone to New Zealand and gone to the Andes to collect the fauna and flora there, gone to the Gobi Desert to finish Lapland. He had to do all of that before the Great Flood. Is it really scientific to expect that poor Noah went on an uncharted, unknown world to collect the 2 million known kinds of animals we have? Very simple. The logic doesn't work. Then we've got a bit of a problem when we're on our ark. We have many organisms that do not survive in zoos, let alone in an ark, in wildly turbulent conditions. We have many animals that require very special diets, like the koala, or like the carnivores, or his colleagues are trying to tell us that the dinosaurs were on the ark. Dinosaurs 30 metres in length, on an ark 155 metres long and 15 metres high. Now what would happen if that dinosaur pair of 30 metres in size decided to copulate on that ark? That's the sort of logic. They recognise they have a fundamental logical problem. So they say, well, we have young dinosaurs, hence copulation is more likely. So the logic doesn't work. But let's then look at our 2 million kinds of organisms which we've had on this ark. They came in pairs, so we have 4 million on this ark. So we have 2 million organisms today. And in the fossil record, all those organisms which were wiped out in the Great Flood, we only have 200,000. So in 4,000 years we've gone from 200,000 to 2 million, and that's evolution. That's using their figures. So it's very clear that we have major problems if we want to look at catastrophic processes. But let's look at these 2 million organisms on the ark. Many of these were meant to have survived the catastrophic process. Now, how did some bacteria and virus, which lived for less than a year, how did they survive on the ark? How did the humans survive on the ark? Humans have a number of diseases that no other organism carried. Now, the humans on the ark must have carried measles, a type of pneumonia, typhus, typhoid fever, smallpox, polio, and good old syphilis and gonorrhea, leprosy, 4 types of malarial parasite, 2 types of tapeworm, an intestinal worm, a pinworm, 3 types of lice, and on we go. So what Noah's family had to carry makes AIDS look like a minor cold. That's the scientists they want us to believe. Then we have another slight problem. Noah's very ill family carry food and feed 4 million organisms every day. Now, if you want to believe that, then you are talking religion. If you want to believe it, his work, then let's continue with our science. We have a problem when the ark reaches Mount Ararat and settles down quietly. Out of this ark comes stumbling a population which is emaciated, disease-ridden, blinking into the light after the flood-ridden world. And what have they got to eat? What did the carnivores eat? They couldn't have eaten the herbivores because we've got them today. And what did the herbivores eat? There was no vegetation. It was either all fossilised or covered in mud. So what did the herbivores eat? Did they eat mud? That's the sort of science that we're meant to believe from this catastrophic event. Then we have a few other little problems, and we become very parochial here and look at some of the Australian mammals. My favourite little friend is the blind marsupial mole. Now, our poor blind marsupial mole comes out of the ark, nothing to eat, can't see, doesn't know where to go, but he just happens to come back to Australia where his fossil ancestors live. That's their science. Now, what is even more surprising about my dear little fluffy friend is he got here across a mythical land bridge and managed to get through Malaysia before the Malaysian tiger got there. So how did he do it? Did he look at signposts? This is the sort of problem we are confronted with. We have a few other little problems. Our New World primates. How did our New World primates in South America find their way back from Turkey to exactly the place where their fossil ancestors were found? How did they do it? How did flightless birds go to isolated oceanic islands? We have flightless birds with a 3-metre wingspan, weighing up to 500 kilos in weight. These flightless birds have managed to go to isolated islands like Madagascar, such as the elephant bird, or Mauritius, the dodo, or New Caledonia for the cargo, or for New Zealand for the moa. How did these birds do it if they can't fly and they go to these tiny little oceanic islands? But how did they find their way back from the ark to where their fossil ancestors were found? This is the level of their science. Some of the other catastrophes which we are fed with concern coal. And this is interesting because coal is always within terrestrial sequences. So I find it hard to understand how this would have formed in a great flood. Let's forget the obvious inanities and continue. Our creationist literature and some of their letters, and we have some marvellous revelations. And one of them is that we find fossilised iron bolts and fossilised gold chains, they're only 8 carat by the way, the fossilised gold chains within coal. We have reports of that from this country. Now that's interesting. First question is, why do we mine coal? Why don't we mine it for gold? Obviously, no gold. The second question is even more interesting. And a year ago, I challenged someone to give me a gold chain from a coal seam in this country. I offered $20,000. This $20,000 was offered in the coal fields, where every day 25,000 men are underground. I haven't lost a penny yet. Now surely science is based on observation. But let's look at the implications of this magnificent find of gold chains within Eastern Australian coal. Gold first came to this country in 1788. Coal was discovered in 1791. So we must have had the Great Flood in Eastern Australia between 1788 and 1791. So we shouldn't be celebrating the bicentenary of Australia. We should be celebrating the bicentennial of the Great Flood. That's the sort of logic we are left with. The implications of their science do not stand up to simple schoolboy science. Now let's look at the favourite one, which we get faced with, and that is the speed of light. We have a very well-known creation scientist, so well-known he's attached to no institute and has no qualifications and is hidden somewhere down in South Australia, who has written some work suggesting that the speed of light has slowed down enormously since creation. This is based, and I won't go into on a number of erroneous assumptions and just saying things that are wrong, but the aim of the exercise is very clear. That is to make time, geological time, instead of being thousands of years old, to make it, instead of being thousands of millions of years old, to make it thousands of years old. So they're trying to shorten time. And this chronophobia is what I want to discuss now. The